David Zokaites, thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me and Sioux Falls Simplified to chat about
good to be here.
chat about your campaign and the race for mayor. We've got a number of topics to get through, but I want to just kind of start by getting to know you a little bit better and ask, why did you decide to run for mayor this year?
I have a lot of ideas on how we can make Sioux Falls a better place for everybody. Mm-hmm. So the way to do that is to run for mayor and spread your ideas and maybe get in a position where you can implement them and really make a lot of difference for Sioux Falls.
Absolutely. Okay, I've been asking everybody this one. It's a little fun, but also kind of a tricky one. If you could only pick one restaurant in Sioux Falls to eat at for the rest of the year, where are you going?
One restaurant. Well, my favorite used to be out there by where I used to work. I don't even remember the name anymore.
Oh.
It's been a while since I've been there.
What kind of restaurant?
American, friendly, a little, but not too, a little offbeat, but not too radical.
Okay. And what's any go-tos lately?
Lamb's Vietnamese cuisine, because it's getting close.
That's a nice,
Oh, yeah.
I don't make it to that part of town very often. That's a nice place to.
It's within walking distance.
I'm gonna have to add that to my takeout.
So when people
routine.
want to meet me somewhere for dinner, that's where I recommend.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into some policy topics here, and the thing that I heard from a lot of readers that they care a lot about is housing. So we have a couple questions on that front. First of all, I want to ask, what is your philosophy when it comes to addressing homelessness in our community?
Homelessness. Well, my philosophy in general is to do some literature search, figure out what the problems are, trying to look at available solutions and see what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So I take that general pattern and apply it to whatever topic of the day. And homelessness typically is related to addiction, which is related to mental illness and emotional trauma.
Yeah.
Well, but at the surface, it's homelessness. So you got to deal with the surface first and provide shelter daytime and nighttime, housing first. And then if you can provide housing, you have some stability for these people. And then you can provide long-term counseling and long-term addiction treatments. And you can help them figure out what their underlying issues are and help them reclaim their lives. And it turns out that all of this doesn't really cost any money because of how much money it really saves.
Sure. I see what you're saying.
Emergency calls are really expensive. Police calls, ambulance calls, hospital visits, emergency rooms cost a ton of money. I've looked at studies that say it's actually cheaper to house the homeless than it is to ignore them. So as soon as you figure that out, you're going, well, what the heck? Why do we even do this? Why do we let them wander around begging for money for alcohol when it's cheaper to give them what they need and give them a new start in life? So that's what I really think we should do.
Yeah. I also want to ask about affordable housing. There's increasing number of people coming to our community all the time. And one of the sort of pain points lately has been, they call it workforce housing, accessible housing, just those sort of like starter homes, apartments, those kind of things. What role do you think the city should play in addressing the housing challenges people are facing?
Well, the first thing you got to do is, again, understand the causes, then you can make for some solutions. The big cause behind affordable housing is that the people who are in control of government really want housing to be scarce. Now, that might not be politically popular to state, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to make housing more affordable, then we could change zoning laws so that it's practical to put small houses on small lots.
Sure.
A big fundamental change in the way that suburbs are designed. Right now, they're designed big houses, big lots. That's the essence of unaffordable. It's a scarcity design which keeps up the price of rent and the price of housing. It's really good if you've already got a house,
Sure.
or if you're a developer or an apartment owner. It's really bad if you're a young couple, really bad if you want workforce housing. So there's some conflict between these different groups of people, these different demographics, and the demographic that happens to have all the money is now the one that's in control, and they're free to say, "Oh yeah, keep it the way it is." And that's the essence of why there's unaffordable housing. But if you manage to change who votes a little bit more, get more young people voting, get more representative governments, then we can build housing for more than just the rich people.
Sure.
And you can change zoning laws so that you can build affordable housing without subsidies. And it's a very important consideration. Affordable housing does not have to be subsidized. If you can put small houses on small lots and smash them together, all of a sudden you cut housing costs way down, and then you can build more of it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hoping that builders and developers would be keen to jump into this kind of a plan.
Sure.
But if they're not, well, then the city could become a developer. Not my preference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not my preference. But hopefully we can talk some builders and developers into really pursuing high density, mixed use, walkable, art-filled, progressive neighborhoods like this. And then affordable housing would be a lot more prevalent.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a lot of issues going on with affordable housing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm afraid you're in store for a lot of very complex topics here in a simplified format. But
that's normal.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of complicated until you get to the crux of the problem, and then you realize it's all a money battle. And as soon as you figure that out, you go, all right, so if we build things for more, if we design the city for more people, well, then what would that design look like?
Right.
And here's what it would look like. So all we have to do is change the rules a little bit and go from one to the other.
Yeah.
Now, if people still want to have expensive houses on big lots, well, all right, that's fine, as long as that's not everything.
Yeah, I see what you're
That's
saying.
the key point.
Yeah.
Grand houses are fine, but don't make everything a grand house. You have to build a certain number of really affordable housing and some really cheap houses and mix it all in a democratic neighborhood, and then we'll solve the housing problem.
Well, we solved that. Fantastic. No, I do want to talk though about public safety. The police department has grown significantly under Mayor Paul Tenhaken and the budget as well, but it's kept crime relatively flat per capita. I'm curious if, as mayor, how would you balance the public safety needs of the community with the budget realities facing the city?
If you want to go and talk about crime and public safety, you have to figure out what causes a lot of crime. I managed to visit the penitentiary a few years ago.
Yeah.
And they told me that most of the crime was caused by alcohol-related problems. Alcohol was the first thing they talked about. They talked about illegal drugs as a secondary problem. Well, if alcohol is a big driver for crime, why don't we go on a public safety campaign and inform people of the dangers of alcohol? And the reason we don't do that is because there's too much money in alcohol sales. This money topic keeps coming up.
Yeah.
If you want to understand what's wrong in American society, try to figure out where the money is going on any particular problem, and you probably find out that the problem we're talking about, like crime, has to do with who makes the most money off of what. So like people make money off of selling alcohol, so you can't realistically just say don't sell it anymore, and it's hard to jack up the prices and it's hard to put warning labels on the stuff. But if it's a major driver of crime, then there's something really wrong. I came across this, I spent a lot of time studying alcohol and drug policy.
Yeah.
Because like we have one of the world's biggest prison systems.
Sure.
And that's all we did a drug and alcohol policy.
Sure.
So I did a lot of study, and I came across a study in The Lancet. It's a premier British medical journal that said that alcohol is the most dangerous recreational drug. Now, you just sit for a little while, and alcohol is more dangerous than heroin, according to that study. And that's probably because it's not just the danger to yourself, it's a danger to other people.
Yeah.
You put those two together, and you know, people get drunk on alcohol, and then they shoot each other, and they drive cars and bash into each other.
What
but
would
they
be
don't
your
do that
approach?
so much with, say, cannabis.
Sure.
So if alcohol is that dangerous, we ought to find a way to get people to use less of it with maybe counseling services, addiction services, and public safety campaign.
Do you think that's part of funding the police department then, and that public safety, some of that type of messaging?
If you reduce crime at the source, you don't need law enforcement on the back end near
Sure.
as much.
Sure.
So, oh, heck yeah, cut down crime, increase public safety, you don't need to spend as much.
Yeah.
And there should be more effort of rehabilitation services
Yeah.
in jails and prisons. Right now, it's an afterthought, and it should be an important inherent part of the design.
Yeah.
It is my understanding that there is 0 treatment options in the county jail.
Oh.
Nothing. Well, how disgusting is that? I mean, if alcohol is a big driver of crime and you have people sitting in there doing nothing, well, I'd be helping them instead of just locking them up in a cage.
Yeah.
I came across another study that said that treatment services are more cost effective than incarceration. Well, then why don't we convert jails into treatment centers? I mean, what a phenomenal idea.
Yeah.
But it's going to be politically difficult because of the get tough on crime mentality that's been crammed through American culture for so long.
Yeah.
But if you look at, again, if you go back to the causes, you look at the literature, and you make some reasonable assessments, you go, we're doing this all wrong. And if we want to increase public safety, then we need to go after the cause of these problems.
Yeah. David, I want to ask another public safety question that came up from a number of readers. Do you support collaboration between the Sioux Falls Police Department and federal immigration officials?
Okay, now there's collaboration is one thing, blind support is another.
Sure.
Now,
Unpack that for me.
we have laws, and laws should be enforced both for poor people and rich people, right? Uniform treatment. But when people go around and act like terrorists, there's something really wrong. No law enforcement agency everywhere should have a ski mask on when they enforce the law. If you need to hide your face, there's something wrong. So I'm strongly opposed to ICE wearing ski masks doing their work. And if they have a badge that says police, that's not good enough. They're not Sioux Falls police. They should be clearly identified, what department, and their names should be clearly identified, and their faces should be clearly identified. And they should all wear body cams. And that should all be available if you've been arrested or detained.
Yeah.
And if that's not being done, well, then there's something really fishy going on. And that applies to every police enforcement agency anywhere
Yeah.
and around the globe.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that face masks should be out, identification should be in, body cameras should be everywhere, and if you've been detained, you should be able to get that information without a whole lot of hassle.
Yeah.
Some states allow you to get body cam video, not South Dakota.
No.
I think that's a real issue.
Yeah.
So I'm all for supporting laws that are uniformly enforced, but I'm not in favor of beating up on somebody who just happens to be a suspect.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of the handcuffs that police currently use because they are prone to abuse. They cause injury quite readily, and they're just unnecessarily cruel. You can enforce the law, but you don't have to be mean to people when you do it.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the arts. So the city's in the process, sigh of relief a little bit. The city's in the process of developing an arts and culture master plan. One of the things that the council's learned about this so far is that some early survey results show most residents do support some level of city funding for the arts. How would you personally, as mayor, approach decisions about funding public art projects?
I have a nephew who's an artist,
Oh, nice.
a public artist. I have a daughter who's an artist. She likes to draw paint landscapes.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I have different opinions concerning public art. But the general opinion is the more the better. Because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to brighten up your day, don't think about homelessness, think about beautiful art. And my nephew recommended that the city have some kind of public art office like the one you mentioned. And they try to put art as many places as you can.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful idea. So when you design your buildings in your neighborhoods, you got to design spaces for art. Put it everywhere. Oh, it's beautiful stuff.
Fantastic. I also want to talk about environmental sustainability. The city has a sustainability plan that's, was developed a few years ago, has been a ton of action taken on it from what I can tell. What would be your approach to sustainability and protecting our community's natural resources? And I want to talk specifically in the context of growth and development. As more people come here, how do we kind of preserve the resources we have?
We only have one planet, so we better take care of it, or we're going to get kicked off.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much the way it works. So you got it. If there's a pollution source, you need to find a way to resolve that. Got to go and try to get rid of carbon dioxide because it's not good long term for the planet. That means a conversion from fossil fuels to sustainable things like wind power and geothermal. It's all very important. I've looked in particular at water pollution as a small piece of the problem. And in South Dakota, a lot of the water pollution is due to farm runoff. Right? Well, who wants to, and then the river gets stinky. Right? Well, who wants to paddle down a stinky river?
Yeah.
Okay. So it turns out that the solution to agricultural pollution is to put vegetated terraces on farmland. The vegetation is important.
Similar to like a buffer strip, or is that?
And those too.
Okay.
There should be buffer strips around every waterway, and put some vegetated terraces on the hillsides. And all this helps with water erosion.
Sure.
Gets rid of all that soil erosion. Absorbs all those fertilizers. Helps to eliminate particulate pollution, chemical pollution, and biological pollution, with all the manure that gets in the river. And if you could do that, it would really clean things up. Turns out there's money to be made with clean rivers. Environmental tourism.
Sure.
And hunting. The big problem with trying to get farmers to implement these kind of buffer strips is property tax. Farmers barely making it as it is, and they're not willing to take land out of growth and put it in conservation. So at a state level, we need to tax conservation lands at a much lower rate than productive lands. And then farmers can afford, windbreaks and terraces and buffer strips like you mentioned. And then we get a cleaner river, and then we get more environmental tourism in, and then the city's greenway would be more profitable. So it turns out that pollution control, while it costs money, probably pays pretty good on it. It might even be profitable simply because of the improved health of everybody who's by the river, not breathing in river stink all the time. So people are healthier and they're happier and it's more beautiful. And it turns out that beauty promotes economic productivity.
Yeah.
Because if you feel better, you're happier, you're more productive.
Sure.
So subsidizing art and cleaning rivers and making a city that feels better, it's all this touchy-feely stuff that we're so terrified of, but it makes great economic sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all for supporting these touchy-feely things that make so much great economic sense.
I want to talk about another issue, maybe in a similar vein, childcare. What role, if any, do you think the city should play in addressing the ongoing childcare crisis in Sioux Falls?
Childcare. A few years ago, I looked at this problem. And it's income inequality feeds into this, and that's hard to address at a city level.
Sure.
South Dakota is kind of a contributor to income inequality. Maybe you didn't know that they're home to billionaire tax havens. Big time in South Dakota, billionaire tax havens. Well, if you want income inequality and if you want unaffordable childcare and unaffordable housing, well, we'll support billionaire tax havens and make sure they don't pay any income tax or any any taxes at all. All right, so that's a big national problem, and
Sure.
the mayor's not going to be able to do a whole lot with that.
Sure.
I know my limits. But I did look at, I made an estimate a few years ago as to how much money it would take to cut child care costs by a third.
Sure.
And it was like $50 million. That's a big hunk of money.
Yeah.
But it might be achievable. It might, if we could run city government better. And some of the fundamental changes would be to legalize recreational cannabis. Oh, talk about a moneymaker.
Yeah.
Maryland, let's legalize recreational cannabis.
Can you do that on a city level?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of. Home Rule Charter
Oh, sure.
allows you to supersede state law. Oh my gosh, whoa, talk about some power. If you get city council to agree with the mayor's perspective, then you can supersede state law unless state law has been specifically written to prevent that. So, and for the most part, you can supersede state laws, but maybe not all the time.
Sure.
So you take a little bit of reason, and you have lawyers for all this stuff. But
Sure.
you could take a little bit of work to supersede state law to legalize recreational cannabis. All right, so that's one way you could do it. Another way to save a whole ton of money is to have taxpayers fund political campaigns.
Say more about that.
Talk about an oxymoron. You save money by paying for campaigns because then candidates don't have to collect money from rich industries to run for office, and then they don't have to reward those rich industries with massive tax breaks and secret contracts. Big problem. So, like locally, you can support the mayor, buy a mayor basically for $200,000 and get maybe $400 million. Think about that number for a little while. $400 million in terms of TIF subsidies, tax subsidies, and secret contracts. I can't get any information out of City Hall concerning who bid how much on what. It's all secret. Contract negotiations are secret. Well, maybe they're all a scam. Maybe they're all built in with a 30% benefit to somebody's friends. So that's why I say maybe, because I don't know. I don't have any evidence. Just a lot of suspicions.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
So you legalize cannabis if you can. You pay for campaigns, and you build government for the people, and you probably have money left over. During Tenhaken's last term, we've got a $90 million TIF for Foundation Park, $90 million. The sewage plant expansion was $300 million. It's kind of a sole source unbid contract. Looks shady to me, but what do I know? And then there's another $90 million TIF coming up for moving Smithfield's Foods, another tax subsidy. Well,
They just approved it last night. Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's $500 million right there. That's a ton of money. That would pay for $50 million for subsidized childcare for quite a while. Well, 10 years.
Yeah.
So that kind of a little leery about having the city jump into that level of social support.
Sure.
Just because it's free enterprise kind of free liberty stuff. But if that's what people want, well, okay, that's what they want.
Yeah. I want to talk, you brought up Smithfield. I want to ask, as Smithfield looks to move to the northwest side of town, what is your vision for that future? I think they're calling it the Sanford District. And maybe more importantly, how do you plan to approach decision-making about kind of what downtown looks like in the future if we have these extra, 120 acres to play with?
The city's vision for this district is too small. too small. Now, there's a topic that doesn't come up very often because we've got 3 big properties, enormous properties that we could merge together into a real long-term city growth plan. There's Smithfield's moving. The city has a big road maintenance facility, big parking lot not too far from there.
Yep.
And the prison's going out.
Yep.
And they're all like next to each other. Talk about a tremendous opportunity. Now, for the last 70 years or so, we've gone crazy on suburbia. Big houses, big lots, drive everywhere to do everything. Isolate people. Yeah, nobody sits on their porch talking to anybody. So get in your car and drive somewhere. And then we have an obesity epidemic going with it. All right, so what I would love to do is to combine all of these 3 enormous properties and implement some of those plans we briefly mentioned before for affordable housing, for mixed-use development, for bringing people together, for pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, for art everywhere, green spaces all around, plant fruit trees here and there. So the overall vision is kind of an ancient city design brought forward to the modern era. A new urbanism.
Sure.
Now, so none of these ideas are really original. I'm just saying, borrowing from ancient Greece and classical Europe and bring it on over and have a grand old time with a new, modern, ancient city. It'd be cool.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on a convention center downtown? And I know there's also kind of a question mark hovering over the Riverline District property and what that will be with this Smithfield announcement.
Convention downtown. I don't really know if we need one. I don't know if the city really needs to spend $250 million on the thing. We've got a premier center that seems to work pretty well. For the city to go further along this initiative, I would like to see it brought up to a public vote.
Yeah.
I don't really want the mayor personally to decide such massive initiatives all by himself. That's just crazy. If the people want something like that, well, sure, we'll give it to them. If they think it's nuts, all right, that's cool too, whatever. There are some things that I think the mayor should absolutely do, like tackling affordable housing and homelessness, because it just makes so much sense. It's kind of a no-brainer. But a whole new convention center for $250 million or whatever it is, I want some help making that decision.
Sure.
And so, yeah, all right. So that's the big thing. Get some help to decide from not just city council, but from the voters. And I think it should be brought up to vote even before we go any further, just because it's so much money and so much time.
Right.
If the people don't even like the vague idea of it, well, why are we wasting time working on it?
Right.
So that's one way at the problem. Now, there's another thing kind of going off to the side that looks a little not so good. That whole area of town is kind of a mecca for homeless people.
Sure.
There's a lot of homeless services in that area. And for some odd reason, the city is trying to kick them all out. Used to be a big center in that old Sears building, DSS. Well, that's not there anymore.
No.
Way, 10 miles away or something. I don't know how the homeless people are supposed to get there.
Yeah, the one-stop building at Dolly Farms is what you're
There you
referencing.
go.
Yeah,
That's the place. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, looks like they're trying to just get everybody out. And then there's that new fence around the Bishop Dudley parking lot.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would have made more sense to build a daytime shelter. So it looks like the city's doing some stuff that looks a little... And there was massive opposition at a city council meeting against that fence.
Yeah, I remember that.
Big time. Went up anyway. Well, that goes back to, like, who does the city work for? So I'm a little leery about that backdrop for this.
I want to go back to what you said about who does the city work for. The Sioux Falls is made up of a wide variety of cultures, creeds, political beliefs, backgrounds, all kinds of different people. If you're elected, how do you plan to ensure that you're representing all of Sioux Falls and that all your constituents are, have a seat at the table in decision making?
Well, I'm brave enough to talk to anybody about anything. If there's a homeless man over there asking for money, maybe I'll have a chat and talk to him.
Sure.
I should be able to do that. And if there's some hardcore right-wing guy with a gun and talking about bad government, I should be able to talk to him. And then if there's some well-educated, dignified people, I should be able to talk to them too.
Hope you're not talking about me. No.
But I think political candidates and mayors and politicians should all be able to talk to anybody. And right now, that's kind of a risky thing to do. Because,
How so?
You shook a hand at that crazy guy?
I see
You're crazy too.
I see what you're saying.
It's risky. Well, but I should be able to do it anyway. Maybe he's got a good idea. Maybe he has a valid point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe it's political suicide to talk to all the crazy people, but we should do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because sometimes crazy people have really good ideas. And they're part of the city too, and the city should take into account their concerns.
Yeah. David, I want to thank you for answering all the questions I threw at you. I also want to give you a chance. Is there anything else or any topics that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to be sure to address to voters before Election Day?
Well, I think the biggest thing is having a city that works for the people. And this has come up repeatedly during our conversation, and that it has done so because it is so critically important.
Yeah.
If we don't get a handle on campaign finance, then we're going to have a whole lot of politicians and a lot of government that does not work for the people. And nobody's really going to be the wiser because it's so insidious. Because people are just out there getting donations. I mean, you have to. Normally it takes $200,000 to get elected. Well, if you get all that money, then you're going to be working for that rich industry. And that's a disaster for the rest of us. If you want to work for the giant military, well, give them more. What's that going to do for childcare expenses? And if you're working for this billionaire, how are you going to lower the taxes? How are you going to increase minimum wage? How are you going to ever get a universal basic income to make up for all the people that you're throwing out on the street with the rise of robotics? So this business of election reform is kind of fundamental to the survival of democracy. And it's not looking real good right now. Income inequality is crazy off the charts.
Yeah.
There's massive discontent. That's the whole appeal of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. All the discontent is due to a dysfunctional government that's been taken over and doesn't serve everybody else. So and then this particular topic doesn't get near the press that it should. Well, it's because newspapers are afraid to be plainly honest. They don't want to turn off their investors. Well, there's other related topics that don't get near the press they should. People don't know that the USA has one of the world's biggest prison systems, world's highest incarceration rate. Well, what the heck? Land of the free, liberty and justice for all? Dude, we're dreaming. And it's all comes down to who's in control and why they're in control. So that's really important, and I think we need to address it.
Yeah.
And then we can solve all these other things that keep coming up, like homelessness and walkability, and better drug policy, and making the world safer, and making it more beautiful, making everybody happier.
Yeah. All good things. David, thank you again. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on all these topics and issues. And I wish you all the best in the rest of your campaign.
Thank you, Meg.
Thanks.